welcome back to today's video. We are back from our blueberry picking extravaganza, and I can't wait to share with you today's recipe. You know, there's so many options when you pick fresh blueberries of things that you can make when you come home, but I just couldn't resist making my mother's blueberry scone recipe today. She used to have a tea shop in my hometown, and they made delicious scones. And so this recipe today I learned from her, and I can't wait to share it with you. Scones are so versatile. There's so many things you can add in or take out, but because we just went blueberry picking, of course, we're gonna be using those blueberries today. So without further ado, let's get started on making our homemade blueberry scones. All right, well, this recipe is super easy. Essentially, a scone is like a glorified biscuit. It just has add-ins, and many people add in nuts or dried fruit or fresh fruit. I mean, the possibilities are endless for scones. This recipe calls for about 3/4 of a cup to a cup of add-ins. We're gonna be using a generous cup of our blueberries. So to get started, we are gonna add 2 cups of flour into our bowl. And I am actually just using all-purpose King Arthur flour today. All right, there's 2 cups of our flour. And then we're gonna add in our sugar. I am using SCONES today, which is a dehydrated cane sugar, and we're gonna use 1/4 cup. You can use any type of sugar you want. If you like coconut or you like maple or just regular cane sugar, you can use that as well. Like I said, I'm going to be using 1/4 cup of SCONES today. All right, and one of the lovely things about scones is that they rise so nice and big. They get big and puffy, and that comes from baking powder. Baking powder is a leavening agent, and most scone recipes rely on a healthy amount of baking powder to get that nice rise. So for this recipe, we're going to be using 4 teaspoons of baking powder. And now we're going to stir our dry ingredients together. Another very necessary element of a scone recipe, like a biscuit recipe, is butter. Butter, butter, butter. Butter is one of my absolute favorite foods in the whole universe. It's hard for me personally to enjoy most things without butter. And so this recipe calls for 5 tablespoons of cold butter, which we are gonna cut up and add to our dry ingredients. All right, and now we are gonna mix our butter in until it resembles kind of a coarse, mealy consistency. You can use your hands if need be. I probably will. So I'm gonna go in there and get my hands in it now. All right, and we're going for that nice coarse, mealy consistency, which the butter is gonna give you when you blend it in with the dry ingredients. All right, that looks about right. As you can see here, it's just kind of a crumbly consistency, and that is exactly what we want. All right, in this bowl we have got 2 large eggs, and we're going to be using 1/4 cup of cream. You can also use just regular whole milk, but I like the thickness of cream. So I'm now gonna mix those 2 together. Is there anything better than cream and eggs? It's like the staple of every good recipe. I love the versatility of scones because depending on the season, you can make them according to what's in season. For summer, you can do your blueberry scones or your strawberry or raspberry scones. For fall, you could do an apple scone. For winter, I generally like a currant scone. So it's just fun to do all different kinds of add-ins depending on the season. All right, we've got our 1/4 cup of cream and our 2 eggs mixed up nicely. And now we're gonna add it to our dry ingredients. Okay, now we're gonna mix it together. Looking good. Okay, and the last step of this very simple recipe is just to add your add-ins, and in this case, that's gonna be blueberries for us. Now, I ended up freezing my blueberries, but they have been sitting at room temperature for a while, and so they may have more moisture than if you were just gonna use fresh. That doesn't bother me, I don't mind it. It just really is gonna depend on your preference. If you don't want added moisture, make sure you use fresh. If you don't really mind, then you can use frozen. Okay. So pretty. There's a very good chance that using blueberries in a recipe like this will give you kind of a purplish or blue dough, which I personally think is kind of fun, especially during the month of July for holidays like the 4th of July. It's kind of festive in my opinion. And if you need to get your hands in there like I'm doing and kind of get the dough together, that's more than permissible. I use my hands a lot when I'm making scones. It's just kind of a rite of passage. And now we're gonna take the lump of scone dough and we're going to put it on the counter and flatten it out. Okay, I've gone ahead and grabbed my baking sheet, and I like to add in a Silpot. You can also use parchment. I just personally prefer Silpot when I'm making scones because it protects the scone from sticking to my stainless steel pan. Okay, we've got our dough sitting here, and now I'm gonna use my hands to flatten it out into a circle. Okay, now that it's in our circle, we're going to cut it into 8 pieces. So I just cut it like a pizza, down the middle, on one side, down the middle on the other side, and then I cut those little sections in half. I really like the triangle-shaped scones. And now we're gonna set them on our pan accordingly. These are a great breakfast food for a summer morning or an afternoon tea party. Scones are crowd pleasers in my opinion. Okay, and our final addition is some turbinado sugar on the top. You do not need to do this. This is something my mother always did and continues to do when she makes scones. And I just think it adds such a decorative, fancy look to any scone you're making. It does make it taste good too, of course. So I'm just gonna go ahead and sprinkle turbinado sugar on top each of the scones. And I'm going to be quite generous with it as well, because why not? All right, we are done with our blueberry scones, and now we are gonna put them in a 400-degree oven for 15 to 20 minutes. All right, friends, here are the blueberry scones after about 20 minutes of baking. They're nice and golden brown, and the addition of the turbinado sugar makes them glisten and gives an extra fancy look to our otherwise very basic blueberry scones. So I'm gonna go ahead and plate these on a lovely blue and white platter, and very likely enjoy one with a cup of tea this afternoon. They are all ready to be enjoyed this afternoon with a nice cup of tea. I hope that you enjoyed today's video of our little trip to the blueberry gardens. I hope you've also enjoyed the recipe I shared with you today. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments below. And as usual, I look very much forward to seeing you in the next one. Goodbye for now.